Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. First of all, I would like to very much apologize. I brought a bunch of bugs with me from Poland, and they keep on staying with me, although I'm trying to kick them out. And so if I start coughing or something, please do forgive me. I'll try not to do it. Thank you for staying here and being at the end. I know that I'm the last person between you and beer, so I'll try to kind of, make it, I hope I'll try to make it worthwhile that you stayed and survive. Like Peter said, I'm both the academic. I work as a lecturer and as a professor at the Academy of Fine Arts at the design department. I'm also have this great pleasure of being a visiting professor here at the Tallinn University. But I'm also, and I think for most, a practitioner. I'm a designer with quite a few years of experience. And I'm working, so yeah, I'm a consultant, meaning that I'm a freelancer. I'm not employed by a company, but actually I have 3 clients, and with all of them I work for longer than a year. So like, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. So, I'm not really a freelancer doing a lot of projects, rather being connected to one company, but keeping my own freedom to be a teacher and to go to conferences whenever I want, and they don't have to give me holidays for that. So what I would like to talk to you about is about using design as a way to make research nicer for people. There was a lot of talk about engaging users in products. It was a lot of talk about engaging users in websites and applications. What I will talk about will be engaging users in services. And I will try to tell you 3 stories from the telecom provider that I'm working with about how we were trying to get people involved or engaged more in the things that we were doing there. First question, is anyone working with a telecom provider here? Okay, good. So there will be few people who will probably have a better understanding of some things I'm going to show to you. But let me start. We are like 6 people user experience department at Play Telecom, which is the smallest telecom on Polish market. It came to exist 8 years ago, new kid on the block. Everybody said it was like the red ocean of competition, and there was no chance that they would survive. Right now, Play is the equal partner to all the other providers, telecom providers in Poland, which is really quite a huge success. And 3 years ago, they invited me over to come and run a workshop for them because they were kind of curious. So they said, like, OK, we do the business as usual, and we would like to try something new, and you are apparently doing something new, so come over and do this new stuff with us, and we will see how it feels. So I did it with them, and they actually liked it, so we started building a team of UX, a UX team or UX department there. Right now, we are 6 of us with 3 researchers and 3 designers. And by all the people in the company, we are being called those freaking idealists. So they are the realists. They try to bring products to the market, and we are those freaking idealists who come and want to do all the good for the users. But in the end, I think that this is our role. So they sort of survived that. We are happy about it, and we try to convince them more and more about how the world could actually be better with the services that they offer. But this better world comes with a price. And basically, the thing is that in order to make the world better, we have to design things that will make people engaged. Yeah. To make people to want to use the products and the services that we are designing. And we do a lot of user studies. Like we run creative workshops, we do interviews, we do anything from the user experience researcher guidebook, all the methods. But at some point we realized that when we are looking at people who come to our studies, we are excited, but they are bored. They are looking at us and they are like, okay, like 1 hour boring discussion, give me my money and I'll go. And at some point, we're thinking like, no, okay, if they are not involved, if they are not engaged, what sort of information, what sort of insight are we getting from them? We are getting insight that they are not really excited about. So we've decided that we would like to start changing it. And I would like to tell you about, like I said before, about 3 projects, 3 ideas, how to make the participants, not the final users, but the people who come to the studies to give us their insights about what we are supposed to design or like how they see our designs, how to make them care about what we are doing. So the first thing, it's a story, I call it visualizing the impossible. And like I before asked who was from the telecom provider or working with a telecom provider, this is something, it's in Polish, but it doesn't matter. This is something which describes a mobile service offering. And this is the document that circles the company, and everybody understands that, or at least tries to understand that. This is actually an example of a new service offering which was introduced in June. And the idea there behind this whole behind this offering was that you don't buy an individual offering, but you buy an offering for the family. So you get a number of people together, you go, you sign all the papers, and then the company has you all. So that was an idea that was being created by our business people for about half a year. They came up with this fascinating table. Explanation of this table would take about an hour and a half to people who understand what telecom offerings are all about. So you can imagine how excited the users would be to see that and to have to comment on that. So, as usually it happens, that the guys came with this sort of description. They came to our research department. We have UX department and the research department, and they said, "Okay, please test it with the users." So our research department went away, came back, and said, "No freaking way. This is untestable. This is no way we can do anything about it that will make people understand what you are trying to say through this table. This is just no way." And usually when there is a problem at the company that no one wants to solve, they come to us. So that's exactly what happened. And they said, "Okay, if the research department says that this is untestable, how about you guys try to make it testable?" And we said, "Okay." And what we do, we usually we work a lot with designers. So we invite young designers to come to join us for creative workshops, where we throw a problem at them to come up with some creative way of visualizing it, or solving it, or coming up with ideas what we could do with that. And it was exactly what happened in this particular case. One thing, why do we do it with the external designers? We do it often because we are too much involved with the company. We understand too much. So basically, we don't have a fresh eye on the business anymore. We think that some things are quite understandable when they are not for the regular people. So that's why, although we are always involved, but we are trying to get new force to come to give us fresh ideas, just to be on the edge of knowing that we're actually designing something that people are able to understand. So with this offer, they came up with two ideas. One was like this. So imagine that this is your family, and then you are putting more and more people into the batch, which is the mobile service offering. So basically, if you put just one person, you pay quite a lot of money. You have some coins here. You put them around. It sums up to a certain number. If you add another person, it gets cheaper. If you add yet another person, it gets even cheaper, and so on and so forth. So there was a visual way of building up the structure of your family, adding all the elements, all the coins that were explaining the elements of that offering, and then actually telling you at the end, summarizing everything into what would be the cost of this particular service offering. So that was one visualization. This is how it would look like. So you have the original price, and then you start adding the elements there. And there was another one, which was also started from the idea that, as people coming from a telecom provider, we start to think about the offering as the basis. But this is not the basis for people. For people, the basis is their family, right? So we were actually asking them, okay, put here into this sort of cloud all the people that you would like to buy mobile services for, and then start adding things that you would like to buy for them. And then once you have this cloud made, you actually start calculating the things. So it was like an analog calculator where people could put how many SIM cards they would like to put here, how many mobile phones, how much internet, and so on and so forth. So in the end, from this terrible table that I showed you at the beginning, it actually turned out to be something like this. We gave it to the users as a research tool, really. And the level of understanding of this offering jumped from 0 with the table to 94% with the tools. So people actually understood what we were trying to tell them. And that was one very interesting thing there. But the other thing which was even more interesting was that we were doing this together with the business people who designed the offering in the first place. And by trying to visualize all the elements, they were realizing how complicated that was. And they actually realized that probably they shouldn't really make it as complicated as they made it at the beginning. Therefore, before we actually arrive at this calculator, the offering got simplified by like 20%. So that was something that was really, really nicely done. And actually, Tommy was already talking today about engaging the stakeholders. I think that using visualization as a way to engage stakeholders is a fantastic way, because by just putting this into a visual form, people suddenly start thinking not in terms of numbers, of graphs, diagrams, and things like that, but into this kind of elements that make them realize the complexity of the things that they are trying to offer. So the result, as I said, there was the offering that went to the market in June, and it is so successful that by October, we had all KPIs fulfilled for the whole company. Pretty spectacular, right? We are really happy because the bonuses will be high. This is pretty good motivation, right? To design these kind of things. Okay. So there's another thing that the other offering that I wanted to talk to you about, and we called it a service shopping market. So with the previous offering, the guys came to us when they already had the idea for the offering, right? And actually, I think that this is pretty good. So I'm not one of the people saying that everything should be designed by the users for the users. Actually, I think that some things the users are not able to imagine, and it's good to design them with the idea and test the idea rather than to try to make them come up with something innovative. And this offering that I showed you before, it would never, no one would really come up with that. But with this particular one, we had a different problem. So basically, the only user group that's not being part of one of the mobile providers' network are the kids. So there is like 100%, how do you say it? So like 100% of people have a mobile phone and a mobile service offering. So the only new clients, new customers that could come to the service provider are the kids. So of course, this is a very interesting group, but not the very easy one to design for. Like, has anyone designed for kids here before? Hands up? No? Okay. I'll tell you this one thing. I can run about 5 interviews a day. I can run 2 creative workshops. If I run 1 session with 4 kids, I have to rest for a week. This is, I love working with kids, but I must say that holidays are required afterwards. So basically, with the mobile service offerings in Poland, there were 2 attempts to actually make something for the kids. They are presented. This one was done by Play, and the idea was that you give a mobile phone, and then you give car toys next to it. And the other was done by Orange, and was basically the cover, which was cover with Hello Kitty. Both spectacular flops. Like, if something, I don't think that anything that was put on a telecom market could go any worse than that. Why? First of all, with this one, this thing is interesting for kids at the age of about 3, maybe 4. And at least in Poland, these kids are not getting the mobile phones yet. So the kids, which are like 8 or 9, which is the age where the children in Poland get mobile phones, they don't care about this kind of toy. With those, this was actually quite popular, so I lied a little. That was actually quite popular with girls aged 20 to 25. Not a single girl age of 8 to 10. So basically, obviously, there was something wrong in those designs. What we did, and here is the picture from the workshop that we ran with the boys. We actually ran 4 workshops. So we had a hint that there are differences between boys and girls at this age and their communicative needs. And we also had a hint that there is quite a difference between kids 7, 8, and 9 to 10. So probably they are actually quite different user groups, which turned out to be true. So we ran workshops with those kids. And with their parents, by the way. So we also realized that the kids are not going to buy the offering. There will be the parents who will eventually pay for that. So it would be wise to ask them what sort of things they would like to buy for their kid. And then after that, we realized one very important thing, that the kids at this age, they don't want to have a child phone. They want to have an adult phone. They want to be adults. They want to be grown-ups. And they can get extra things to that, but they want to have something which looks like daddy's phone, and not like a phone of a toy phone. So what we did, we realized that we need to understand a number of things. So first of all, we realized that there is a number of elements that have to be put into the offering in order for the parents to be actually interested in that. There were issues with security, there were issues with communication, there were issues with entertainment that should be put on the phone, so that the parents don't want to really let the kids have whatever they want on the phone. They want to have a little bit of control over that. We realized that there is a major conflict between the selection of the phone between the kids who want the newest, best smartphone ever, and the parents who don't want to pay for that smartphone because the smartphone is going to be destroyed first week when the kids take it to school, or gonna get stolen or lost or something like that. So there was definitely we knew that there will be some negotiation going on that. And then we also realized that the kids, they want to have a grown-up phone, but most of all, they want to get a present. So they don't really care about the phone that has a nice cover or has a toy, but it has to look like this beautiful, great present. So what we decided, we wanted to focus on the packaging. So we thought, okay, like maybe we shouldn't really play with the phone and then change things there, but maybe we could design some ideas for packaging or gadgets that are going to be put together with the phone, which will make it really attractive for the kids. So that was the sort of the space that we designed for there was the mobile phone. These were like the games that we wanted to see, like what sort of games the parents and the kids would choose. These were the offering elements, so like voice, SMS, internet, added value services here, and there were like some additional elements that we thought that maybe the kids would like to get. But as I said before, the important thing was the packaging. I'll just try to get back. Oh, yeah. So again, we got a bunch of designers, external designers, to come over for one-day workshop, and we asked them, OK, please work with us on what sort of ideas for packages that are not just a box could be created for the kids to enjoy. And they came up with a number of ideas. This one was like the organizer for the desk. So you can see it here. Like it was just a prototype, right? So the idea was that the kid gets the phone in this kind of organizer, and then they can put it here, and this will be a place for their mobile phone together with other things that the kid needs for school. This was another one that was an idea that you have something that you can hang on a wall, and then there's sort of yet another organizer, but like from a fabric rather than from not a box per se. And this was another one that was more aiming for girls. And the idea was that as the girls want to be grown-ups, so there should be like a little bottle of perfume there, and something that makes them feel really grown up with the offering. This was another one that we called it a treasure box. And the idea was that it was sort of like a toolbox for boys and a pony horses box for the girls. That was something that was really important, apparently. There was another one which was like a Magica book. So basically the idea was that you put the mobile phone here, like all the elements, and then you have cards, and you sort of explain to the kid page by page how they should use all the elements. There was actually a similar design by, I think, by Samsung some time ago, shown. The designers didn't know about it, so apparently there was a quite mimic idea. And that was another one which was called a magic box, and the idea was that it's kind of filled up with a bag, and you put your hand inside, and then you're looking for all the elements, like your mobile phone and the charger and things like that, and all the gadgets there. And that was yet another one, which was the urban monster, something that the kid could hang in a room. We look at all, and I think that was one last one, which was spectacular. So that was the idea for the package for all the pencils. So like the kid gets a mobile phone in that, and then they can put all the school utensils into it and then use it. So what we did, we got all those designs. Everybody was excited. We got a bunch of experts, and I think we had about 10 people, 2 of them having children. So imagine how what experts we were. We got metrics. So we said, okay, what are the important elements of the decision for the package? And there were things like, okay, like how transportable it is, how much it costs, and all the things that companies always worry about. And then we came up with the metrics, and this one was our favorite. We thought every single kid will love this idea. Like, we will make it nice, and they will be just thrilled by that. And this one, this made it by the bell. So there was someone who was so much in love with this idea that convinced all of us that we should actually put it as a black horse. So like maybe it's not going to win, but we are not going to lose anything if we test it with the kids. Okay, we got also gadgets. I was the happiest girl ever, so I was given quite a lot of money, and I went to a shop, and I was just buying all the, gadgets that I thought I would like to have had when I was a 9-year-old child. Apparently, my choices were completely not aligned with the kids. So, like the things, like they chose things I would have never chosen. So basically, we had many of them. Like it was about 50. And then we've got all the boxes. We've got all the boxes put together, and we created sort of a shopping market for the offering. So imagine it looked like this. It was a huge room with a table. Things were covered with fabric, so like the kids and the parents could not really see things while they entered the room. And we would kind of take the things one by one, and they would go and stand in front of something and negotiate, a parent and a kid, what sort of things should create this offering. So like how much internet they would like to have, how much voice, how much SMSs, how many SMSs, what sort of games they would like to have there, what sort of added value services the parents would be willing to pay for and how much they would be willing to pay for it. Then what sort of mobile phone? We had like about 7 different mobile phones, and that was really quite spectacular negotiation going on there. It was taking usually about 5 minutes to get the agreement about the phone. And then we would uncover the gadgets, and the kids, like we would just throw them on the ground, and the kids would go like, ah, and just looking for the gadgets they loved. And then at the end, we would show the boxes. And then they were asked to choose 2 boxes that they loved the most. And in the end, it would end up being something like this. So basically, you've got the added value services, added services which were like for free, the elements that should make the offering. Then you've got the mobile phone chosen, the 2 boxes that they liked, and the gadgets that they liked. So we ran this study with 100 couples, a parent and a kid. So we've got quite a lot of qualitative but also quantitative data for making the selection. The selection of the package. So, like I said, we thought that this package for the pencils would be the favorite one, and this one, the magic box, got by chance as a black horse. And we were quite convinced that we were right. So imagine the thrill of all the experts sitting in a room when they realized that it was exactly 0 children who chose the package for the pencils. 0. Not a single child out of 100 chose that we thought that was the killer, killer package. This one that almost didn't make it was chosen by 76% of boys and 62% of girls. So that was actually the most favorite one. We are still struggling because it's quite an expensive thing. So we are still struggling how to make it a little bit cheaper than it is. I'm sorry. So the result, actually, I cannot tell you yet because the service offering was announced yesterday. So we will know by Christmas how successful it was. The package is not exactly how we wanted because, like I said, it got quite expensive. So the company said that was that was a little too much money to put into the offering without really understanding how the market would react to it. But we are having plans that once this first round happens, and we see that people are interested in the offering, we will actually add, and we will invest more into this service offering. So that was really actually quite a fascinating process. A lot of discussions at the company about it. Everybody's laughing. That was the most research project ever in the history of the whole company. But actually, the whole fun and like the excitement of the kids, actually, that was really spectacular. There was one kid who came. It was like quite early in the morning, about like 8:15. We were starting, and he came yawning and like really tired. I said like, oh, do I have to be here? Like really bored. And then we went through the whole process. It lasted about like 20, 25 minutes. And then he finished it, and then he came up to me and said like, I'm not bored anymore. Can I do it again? So, that was the level of excitement for them, that they could choose, that they could really negotiate with their parents like grown-ups. So the whole idea of getting them involved in that sense that worked and paid off big time. Okay. And there's the third example that I wanted to show you. Have any one of you heard about cultural probing and cultural probes as a method? Okay. Okay, some hands are up. Okay. So the idea here is that you create something that provokes people to share their thoughts on a subject that you want their thoughts on. And you can do it on very different things, from memories to using daily things to how they act in different situations. This is a very generic tool, very nice tool. And what we did, we decided that we are going to use it for something extremely mundane and boring, which is an invoice. I don't think that there is anything more boring than an invoice, ever. It's just a piece of paper with some numbers on it. But the thing is that if you are running a service company, this is the touch point that your user is going to see the most often. This is the thing that comes in, month out, and the user is always forever exposed to that information. And the typical reaction to the invoices, at least in Poland, I don't know how it is here, but it's like, okay, I don't understand what's there. It's unclear. So what we did, we realized that we don't quite... First of all, we realized that when we start working on an invoice, we start dealing with the usability issues. So we keep on pushing the numbers and like thinking of what we should replace where. And in the end, we don't even know how people deal with invoices in the first place. Like, what they do with them. How do they shuffle them at home? Why do they pay them that way or the other way? And all these questions that we've got. So what we did again with the external designers, this time these were my students. We invited them over. It's not child labor. They were paid for it. We invited them over for, again, a day workshop, and we asked them to bring their own invoices, to discuss them with us, and then to design some ideas for the probes. And they came up with a number of ideas, but there were three that were the contesters to the final design. And basically, they came up, the ideas were as follows. This one was called a time machine, and the idea was that people would get letters from the past, from the ancient times, like ancient Egypt or from the Middle Ages, writing how some of the things that, how people dealt with invoices at that time, and they are supposed to explain how it's being done in a civilized world. So that was the idea there. This idea was to create sort of like a story, like a movie, with a number of genres. Like, for example, the story of how people treat the invoices at home would be the adventure story, and the what happened to the lost invoice, the thriller story, and things like that. And the idea that won in the end was the idea that actually, when you think of an invoice, this is like traveling across Europe. You go to different countries and you act in different ways with the invoice. So we actually used up this particular metaphor for the cultural probe that we created. These are the students who did it. I'm really proud of them because they did a great job. And this is the design they produced. We created 40 probes. They had 3 days to make them. So they didn't sleep. There was a little bit of child labor there after all. Okay, so the idea was as follows. when you get the users, the participants, we've got 30 people who are participating in the study. They would get this kind of box, and they would get 6 packages inside. I'll tell you about the packages in a moment. And they would also get a book where they would have the instructions on how to use all the packages inside, and also they could comment some extra stuff there. So what we did, we took the boxes, and typically how we run these kind of studies is that we arrive to the users, to the people who are selected for the study, recruited from the agency. We plan usually about 1 hour, 1.5 hours to explain to them all the details about the study, because we don't want them to drop out. And the dropout rate for those kind of studies is about like 20–30%, which is quite a lot, because the groups are not really big. So with this particular one, it wasn't me, it was my colleague. He came to Łódź, which is a city 120 kilometers away from Warsaw. He took the box out, opened it. He took out the first package, and people who were sitting there, they started protesting. They said like, hey, but we don't want to know what's inside. We want to have we want to be surprised. Don't show it to us. Like, just leave it there. So like, yeah, but you're not going to understand how to deal with it. I said like, okay, we will call you then. Don't show it to us. So actually, usually the hour-and-a-half introduction to the study lasted in all 3 cases, because the people were divided in 3 groups, lasted 15 to 20 minutes. They grabbed the boxes and ran away with them. Okay, I'll show you what was in the boxes. So that was basically the booklet with all the instructions. You can see here it was all designed quite nicely, so people could actually appreciate the tasks. And like I said, it was a trip across Europe. So the first package was going to Switzerland. And the idea was that we wanted them to select the invoices that they had at home and use the 2 stamps. It says good and bad, and to stamp the things they thought were like good or bad on those invoices. Just keep on stamping. And then at the end, after they did the stamps, they were supposed to divide those invoices into good invoices and bad invoices, put them in those 2 envelopes, and write why they thought that those invoices were either good or bad. It wasn't our first study, so actually we already discussed the invoices with people coming to our studies. And usually they would come and they would cover their names or their addresses and their bank account numbers like really meticulously, so we couldn't see anything, because maybe we would send some money to them, for example, right? In this particular case, they would give us the originals of their invoices, stamped up, happily, like usually they would bring, like, for the regular study, 2 invoices maybe. Here we would get 10, 20, like really different invoices. That was really quite amazing. We are still dealing with them. The interesting thing was also that we didn't get the stamps back. They loved them so much that everybody kept them. They said, like, okay, sorry, we just like them. And another thing that we did was that for every day we were giving them a little gift. So actually for the first day, it was like a small Lindt chocolate. It was Switzerland, right? So the Lindt chocolate seemed appropriate. So that was the first day. The second day, we were actually wondering, what do they do with the invoices at home? Because what we know as a company is that there is a moment when you actually receive an invoice, and there is the moment when you have to pay it. And that's it. We don't know anything else about it. So actually what we did, we created this map that was actually traveling through Europe, so it was like being on the move, where they could, they've got different actions that they could do, like I'm giving it to someone else, I'm checking it, I pay it, and so on and so forth. Here there were different people who could do that, so it's me, my parents, my accountant, my partner, and so on. Here were the places where they could actually put it, so I put it on a floppy on the computer, I put it on my desk, and so on. And here were the moods that they have when they actually deal with all those invoices. So again, we got spectacular amount of information. What was really interesting, there were like 2 revelations for the company. First of all, we realized that when people pay an invoice, they're actually quite happy. We always thought that this is something that's really bad, like that they are not really pleased with that. But they feel like the chore has been done. They don't have to think about it anymore, and they feel like relieved that this is over, that they are done with remembering that they have to pay. And the other thing what we realized is like, as a company, we tend to think that people don't pay the invoices because they don't want to, that they want to cheat the company, they don't want to pay for what they got. But it turned out that most of the cases, the invoices got lost. So they put them somewhere, they gave it to someone, and this other someone forgot to pay them, and suddenly no one in the family knew anymore who was supposed to pay the invoice. And then, the thing got forgotten, and then you get a reminder, and then they feel actually quite ashamed. So that was the second day. The third day, we sent them to UK, and we said, OK, now we would like to understand why do they choose a certain payment method? Because some of them, there's still 30% of people who pay their invoices through the post, so they actually go to the post office and they just give away the money, and that's really strange. But some people pay through their bank account, some people pay other ways. So we found out, we kind of investigated all the ways that they could pay the invoices. We created this sort of quiz, and they would go through the quiz, and they would actually select, they would become a member of the royal family. So they knew which royal family member they resemble most from their payment method. And then at the end, they had to write a statement for the nation explaining why their payment method was the best. So from that, we were getting the arguments why they're actually choosing this payment method over any other that there is. And actually, with this one, there was also quite interesting, was just one person. So like, we were collecting them at the final workshop, and the one lady came, and she didn't fill it in. And I was a little bit upset and like asking, like, why didn't you do it? And she said, like, I love this quiz so much, so could you please copy it for me? I will fill it on the copy, and then I will keep the original for myself. So the next one was coming back from the island back to the continent, and it was a letter in the bottle. So like the idea was that they are going on a ferry, and that was all about the message which comes together with an invoice. So like there's usually either an email or like some additional information that's being attached. And the idea was that they are supposed to create a message in the bottle. So that was the original email, and they were supposed to take it out, cut it into pieces, and arrange it the way they would like to have it. That was so successful that after we got the study, we finished it in October last year. And the first change to the message that was going with an invoice, the digital message, the email, was implemented a month later. The difference was like so huge, so people got really like actually quite inspired by that. And the bottles were not returned to us either. So that was another one. Throughout to the day 5, we thought, okay, the guys probably they really understand what they want on their invoices and what they don't want, because they already did all those exercises. So what we did, we sent them to France, and they were supposed to fill up a menu du jour, saying like what should be the starter, the main course, the dessert, and what should be thrown out. So they got all the elements that we put on invoices, and they were supposed to glue them as these elements. And again, an incredible inspiration, because it turned out that about 2/3 of the things were the ones to be thrown out. Oh, sorry, I jumped. So the final day, we wanted to understand why they don't pay invoices. We already got some hints from the trip, but we wanted to understand more. So we sent them to Spain. They're lying on a beach, and they realized that they didn't pay their invoice. They're supposed to send 3 postcards to their friend. On one postcard, they were supposed to write why they didn't pay an invoice and how it made them feel. The other one was like, what's supposed to be done with that invoice? And then the third one was, why do these things happen, whether they happen more often, and why they happen more often. And from that, we realized 2 things. One, like I said, was that people often forget to pay, and it's not against the company. It's more like, just memory issues. But the other thing is that they often decide not to pay because they didn't get the money from their vendor on time. So basically, especially with small businesses, if someone doesn't pay them, then they don't have the money to pay for an invoice, which was, again, a trigger for us to stop thinking in terms of punishing them for not paying, but maybe giving them some small credit that they can use up for paying the invoice and then paying us back the money when they actually receive it. So a completely different way of thinking about about approaching the problem that we identified. And at the end, we asked them to write some memories from the whole trip. The result, so actually we invited them over, we had discussions with them. The interesting thing, like I said, was that we usually have, especially for longitudinal studies, we have about 20 to 30% drop-off, which is not really good. With this study, we've got 100% stay in on a study, 100%. There was actually one lady who didn't come to the final workshop because her child got ill and she had to take it to the hospital, but she sent us the box anyway. So that was the level of engagement. So what we got from it, this is the original invoice, not a very beautiful one. It's not being implemented yet, so you're getting a preview, but actually we managed to design it in something like this, with the arrangement of the elements that are really explanatory for the users, where actually the users, they want to know two things. They want to know how much they should pay, and if the sum is bigger than expected, why is the sum bigger? These are the two things that they are interested in. They are not interested in anything else. So actually, we redesigned it in such a way it's going to be implemented in the coming months. So the question is, because it all sounds cool, but often I get the question, okay, but it costs money, right? It is an investment. It's a bigger investment than a focus group or an interview or anything else that can be done. So is it truly worth it? We've got insights that we could probably run studies on for the next 10 years. We don't, for some things, we just don't need any more studies. It's such a rich data. It's incredible. It's inspirational. People come and they take those elements, those things that we created for their projects to get inspired by them. And the buy-in in the company is incredible. It's incredible because everyone likes to play with nice things. So, everyone is coming to our desks and looking like, oh, what new do you have there, like, from the cool stuff? And they want to try it. And, through trying that, they ask us questions like, what was the study all about? What sort of results we got? And in such a way, we're actually saying that UX is quite important. Engagement? Yeah. We've got one lady who wrote us, after the cultural probe study, who wrote us a thank you letter. The letter, it was an email, but we printed it. It had 5 pages. And she said that when she saw the package, when she opened it at home, so some people opened package by package to be surprised. She was actually the one who came home. She opened everything, opened all the packages, and she was like re-looking at everything. And she said that for the first time, that she participates in studies, so she's in one of those databases for participants for different studies. And she said, like, for the first time, I felt like a human and not a research meat. So she said, like, she was probably exaggerating a little, but she wrote us that she was almost crying when she saw it. That someone actually put effort into preparing something for her so she could give us insights. That was really quite amazing. And there's, of course, a bunch of theory behind it. I'm coming from academia, so obviously there is some ground to these kind of things. This is a researcher from Delft University of Technology, from the design department, and she created a model saying that whenever you are trying to understand different things about people, you use different methods. So these are things that are sort of, in a way, defined. So basically, you want to understand something about people, you have some research methods, and then there's a level of knowledge that you get out of it. So on the first level, you actually, when you ask people to tell you, so you run interviews or focus groups or things like that, you ask them what they tell you and what they think. So basically, the knowledge that they provide you with is quite explicit. And there's often a problem with that knowledge, that whenever you ask people after the interaction, so like, some time after the interaction actually occurred, they rationalize things. They are not telling you the true story. They are telling you the rationalized story about what happened. I have a really cool example here, a really short one. There's always a problem with telecom providers and the queue in the shops, telecom shops. So the thing is that you get there, there's a number of consultants, you never know how long the consultant is going to be busy. People are sort of distributed around the space, some looking at the phone, some reading something, and so on. And then it's very difficult to understand, who is after whom, and so on. So our company asked a research agency to run an interview or a focus group study about how people perceive a queue. They did it, and people said that actually once the deal is, so they left with what they came for, they're actually quite happy and they don't mind. We did an observational study with contextual interviews, and what we realized is, like, if there's more than 5 people in the shop, the 6th person doesn't stay. People don't understand who is behind whom, so they are trying to navigate through it, but they are sort of afraid to ask. So they are trying to figure it out, and then if someone jumps in front of someone, then there's a discussion, very lively often. And often the situation that happens is that someone is looking at the fonts, turns around, and then like 2 or 3 consultants are free, and they don't know whom to choose, and there is a mess. So actually, rationalized definition is like, okay, if I got what I wanted, I'm fine with the queue, but actually when you look at it from the context, it's not fine. It's actually pretty bad. So actually that brings me to the second level of the model, which says that if you really want to understand what people do and how they act, then you should observe them. And of course, there's a combination. Tommy was also talking about the data triangulation, that it's really good to combine the methods, and I second it with my whole heart. But from these things, so from the observations and interviews combined, you sort of understand what people do and maybe why they do these things, but very mechanically in a way, right? So, like, why did I behave in that particular case in this particular way? But there's something more that drives us, which is what we know, what we feel, and what we dream about. And this is, for me, where the interesting stuff lies often. It lies all over, but this part allows at least our team to create things that are new, that are inspirational for us to come up with something which we haven't thought of before. And for this, we use generative techniques. And the 3 techniques that I showed you, these are the generative techniques. And then you actually get into the subconscious level, into the deep understanding, like very latent understanding. If I ask you about your invoices, at the beginning you would probably say, like, yeah, boring, or difficult, or whatever. But if you went through the study, suddenly your understanding of this whole subject would be very different. And I think that with this particular level, if you try to understand things that are not really conscious in people's minds, it's really worthwhile to put some more effort and to design the research tools for people to actually get a feeling that they are not research meat, that they are people, and they will really pay off with their knowledge and their understanding of the subject. And with this, I would like to thank you, and there's beer time.
But before that, there is Q&A time also, and actually the most interesting thing this time I start with my own question is actually the result of the invoice study somewhere available, so I can, at least in Polish or English?
In Polish. Actually, we'll see. Maybe we are planning on publishing that.
Because it's actually, I don't know, I can take whichever large customer I have been happening to serve, and I see that this kind of communication is just totally crazy, and especially with the telecoms. They're just competing.
But different companies as well, really.
Okay, questions from the audience, please. Let with a hand know if you want to get the mic. There is one which has been from the...
I think that there is one person there.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll ask one from the back channel first. Michael is asking, but how to make 4-page legal documents more fun? Have you looked into that?
4-page?
Legal documents, contracts.
Legal. Yes, actually, that was not my study. I'm being an academic and a professor at the Academy of Fine Arts. I'm often invited to some juries and, like judging some design stuff. And actually, the thing that won last year contest on graphical design was a book with like four books on legislation. And it was so beautifully designed that actually I wanted to read it. That was spectacular. It was like on a beautiful paper, very little text, so like it was not sort of text per page, but it was sort of contextually put. So like if there's a paragraph that you should read together, it was put together, but if there was a small paragraph that you should read together, it would be on a separate page. And it was actually, I think that there is a lot of things that can be done with the legislative documents in these kind of ways. And another thing that we are going to do in the future, this is the project that's in the pipeline. We really want to look into all the legislation that we are giving to the users in the how do you say it? The regulations and things like that, and try to make it also more interesting and understandable for them, because they are afraid of those documents. And our legal department is getting to understand that we cannot write them in the way they are being written. So yeah, definitely there is potential.
I would ask, can there be too much engagement in research? So when you started off, you said, when people are not engaged, what kind of data are we getting? Yeah. So the other way around, if they are too much engaged, what kind of data are we getting?
It's a good question. I don't think that I ever experienced too much engagement. We've got a lot of it. So this is like sometimes difficult to bear because people get really excited, and that leads to closing workshops to last much longer than we expected. But this is something that we actually want from them, so that's not a bad thing. I think that one particular issue is with the data that we collect, because it's so much that, if you try to analyze it, that would take ages. So we use it more as inspiration. Like some elements, of course, are being analyzed because some of them are required for decisions. Like with the email that goes with the invoice, we actually analyze all the elements there. But with many other things, we just take them as inspirations and just look at them to be reminded how people think about things.
Basically, are they better for, last slide you showed, are they better for this generative like experiments, not that much for observational, like observations, because you're changing the ecology that much?
Yes, so actually what I was trying to show, maybe I'll get back to this graph. Can I get the presentation,
Can you put
please?
the presentation back, please?
Oh, the guys went for B already. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, the generative techniques, the things they showed, are for the last level. Observations are observations, and of course, you can throw in some elements from generative techniques into the observations, and you can do this for the interviews as well. Oh, perfect. Thank you. But the thing is that if you try to use them only, like I showed, often you go into this deepest level. So I'm not judging any of these methods. They are good for their own purposes. But it's very important, it was in the panel discussion, someone said that it's important to ask, why are you doing something before you decide what sort of method you take? So for me, this model helps me to sort of think, okay, what do I want to get from the study, and then choose the methodology that helps me get that information from the study. And often we do use interviews or observations. With this, because it was about engagement, that's why I decided to show that generative techniques this time. Thank you.
Okay, any more voice questions, please? And if there is anybody, sorry, next mic up there, please.
Thank you for really engaging presentation. Yeah. So my question is, how do you choose the number of people that are participating in the research? How do you feel when, well, it's enough people that can give us some valuable data?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do we do it? It always depends on the purpose. So actually, we really decide per stakeholder we are designing for, because we've got some stakeholders at the company who are much more who feel comfortable with qualitative data. So therefore, we with the probes we had 30 people. which is already quite a lot. I think that we could have done it with 15, but we wanted to have 2 cities, to have a good representation of the users, so we decided to do it like this. With the shopping market study, we had a stakeholder who is extremely numeric. He is not going to buy anything unless it's statistics. So we wanted to have a deep understanding of the data. That's why we did this combination of qualitative and quantitative study. But we basically selected the group and the numbers so we can actually run statistics on it. And we did it with the research department, and they were doing the statistics. We were doing the qualitative analysis. So it always depends. We are really lucky because no one puts any objections on us with respect to how many users we have. We want to take, so the company is willing to pay for the number of users that we want for each study. So we are kind of quite bourgeois about that in a way. But I know that often there is the question like, what is the minimal number of people that should be used? I think that it always depends on whether you are looking for inspiration or you want to get data, like more research data. And for research data, I believe that you should, so of course I understand and I agree that it's better to have 2 or 3 users rather than 0, but I think that if there is a chance at the company to run a proper study, it's worthwhile to run a proper study because I think it was Mal talking about it, that if you don't run a proper study, you won't get a buy-in from your stakeholders. They want to be sure that it's not you spending the money on the new product, it's them deciding and their butts on the line, not yours. So in the end, they want to have certainty about whether they are taking the right decisions. And I totally understand that. But if we are looking for studies, when we are running studies just for inspiration, so more for us, or for the company to get, to get them thinking, it can be smaller. And we don't really mind that much, so we do it with within the comfort zone that we have, or we want to have. So I don't think that we run studies smaller than 10 people. I don't think that we've ever run a study smaller than 10 people, but sometimes we have like 12. And that gives an understanding of like, the next step, what we should take and so on. So yeah, it depends, which is the terrible answer to any question, but I hope that it helps.
Okay, thank you. There is a microphone there, and if there is anybody wanting the next question, then yeah.
It works. My question is in line with the previous one. As you said, you get a lot of rich data, especially from the suitcase experiment. In that case, do you own the data and do you pay for it, or is it usually owned by the stakeholder? And how do you manage that data and actually mine it and analyze it? Because I can imagine it's quite a massive information.
Yeah. So actually, we do own the data because our stakeholders don't want to deal with our data. They are interested in results and recommendations and not the process. So it is a very nice and very clear distinction. And we actually learned not to talk to them about the process, but talk about the recommendations, which also helps us to be more creative about the ways we analyze the data. That's how it works for us. With the rich data, like we've got with the suitcase study, with the cultural probe study, we actually, when we launched the project, we realized that we have 4 different subjects within the project. So the internal client, the finance department, they came to us, redesigned the invoice. But then when we started working with them, we realized that there is an issue of this email, there's an issue of an invoice, there's an issue of payment, and there's an issue of notifications. So like, how do you deal with people who didn't pay, or like, overpaid or underpaid, and all these kind of things. So we said, okay, we collect the data for everything, but we do it step by step. So we did the first study with the letter in the bottle with the email, and that was a very quick one. We just got 30 emails, and then we were just comparing the numbers, and like we got small statistics from it, and we knew what should be there. So that was really easy. With the invoices, it was more complicated because there were 2 different interests. One was the interest of people who are individual payers, so like the people who don't have a business. And they are like business people, and they use the invoices in a very different way. So we realized that we should really design 2 different invoices for them. And what we did, we collected the data, we always work with design alternatives. So I didn't show it here, but what we did, we designed 12 different versions of an invoice. We went again to the users. We asked them to split those invoices on a number of axes, like understandable, not understandable, beautiful, ugly, I would like to have it, I wouldn't like to have it, like a number of dimensions. And based on that, we selected 3. Based on that, we work on those 3 to make them, more comprehensive with all the data, because at first we used the fictional data, and then we wanted to see the data from the actual users, so they could relate to the data that was presented there, the numbers. And then we did it again with them, and then we got the final design, which in the end is going to be quite similar between the business and the individual payer. The thing is that the business will have all the legal things with the VAT and things like that, which are really important, and the individual payer will get this as the very last page, because our legal department doesn't want to let it go, but then basically they will get the front page, which is the official, like, this is how much you should pay, and only at the very end they will get this official document with all the VATs and stuff like that. So that we didn't manage to cut it off completely, but we managed to convince the company that it shouldn't be there on the first page.
Yeah, I understand there is one more question from this side also.
What other generative techniques have you used or recommend?
Oh, so I also work with Polish eBay, and with them we used something which is called contextual mapping, which is like you make a map and you put some elements and people comment on those elements and they draw their own things. And this works quite beautifully as well. It was for a very different purpose there. We wanted to understand how people try to run their business online and how it connects to the offline world. So there was a very different, much more generic question there. We used to use and we are going to use again design probes. So this is some small intervention that you actually give to people, and they use it, and then they comment on how they used it. Before, I myself, as a part of my research, used the technology probes, which is like a piece of technology that you put into people's homes, and then you provoke them to do certain things, and then you see how they use that. And actually, with the shopping market, that was something that we created. That this is not a described method. We were just sitting there and thinking, like, okay, what do we want to do? And we came up with that. And then recently, we did another study for designing of a package for the starter for the internet offer. That this is a new offer that is going to the market in December. And actually, there we decided that we are going to create sort of reflection on what the offer is all about using 3 elements. One was the sort of a persona of the offer. So like this is more from marketing tool that you give a character to the offer itself. And there we said, okay, so we put the maps of Poland and we would start asking people how they would use this offer, like where and in what way and so on. And then at the end, we gave them like clouds of thoughts, and they were like writing things, what they thought about that offer. And we created those huge posters, and they are hanging there in the office, and people get inspired by them too. So it's, honestly, this is the generative methods. This is the paradise for designers, because there are no constraints. You can come up with whatever you want.
Next question is there.
Wonderful presentation. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
One topic that was talked about before was this mindset of cost. So we have different stakeholders. Let's take this example of the government and the city council. So they think about the cost and what they will get, but also designers and whoever is involved think about, okay, what I'm offering for this cost. So how do you, after this presentation, I'm sure everyone is convinced. But how can both stakeholders understand the value of using these methods, to a different extent?
It's a really good question. Actually, we do have our own strategy on that. So basically, when we started running the whole UX department, it was very difficult for us to get projects at the beginning because no one trusted us. It's sort of like a chicken-egg problem. Like, you didn't do any projects, so no one trusts you, and you cannot do any projects because you didn't do any projects, and therefore no one trusts you. So we sort of by coincidence or by chance decided, okay, if we are ever going to succeed, we have to get those people to join us for the projects so they can actually build trust towards the methods that we are using. And we did it for the first project, and then we did it for the second project, and now the whole company knows that if they want to have a UX project, it's not only good to bring us a subject, but they have to get involved. And we are not taking projects where the stakeholders are not involved. And involved meaning coming to the workshops, analyzing data with us, looking at all the information that we get, talking to the users, and not sitting behind the look-through mirror, but being there in the room with us, interviewing with us. And they complain a lot, because it takes a lot of time. But rarely we have problems with having a buy-in for the ideas that we bring. And of course, this is business, so this is not all paradise that everything that we come up with gets implemented, because there's a lot of constraints, like business constraints, technology constraints, and so on. But the thing is that, so one of the managers, I was talking to her, and I started talking about this freaking idea list, and she actually said that. She said, the problem with you UXers, they call us UXers, is that you are freaking idealists. And we have to be realists. You are like user-obsessed, and we are business-obsessed. But on the other hand, if you weren't there, we would always go our old ways. So basically, whatever we do, even if we don't succeed completely, we already made a change. We bend their perception of the world, and then you keep on bending. And it takes time, but then you kind of bend, and then at the end you end up with something which is quite nice and actually quite user-friendly. So it's just patience. I think that this is, and not getting discouraged. Like everyone gets discouraged. Like we all got discouraged along the way, but don't. It's people, in the end, everyone in the company, in the government, anywhere wants exactly the same. They want to be successful. And those methods help them to be successful, and they just have to trust them, learn to trust them, that they can bring that success to them. And yeah.
I think, by the way, are you going to the after party also with us?
At least for a moment. I don't know how long my throat is gonna survive.
Yeah, okay. We'll take one more question here, because otherwise the beer will get hot and pizza will get cold. And then we can continue with Aga on the after party side. But I know that I think the mic is there, and this is the last question. Next one will be already.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, it isn't a question. I just started to think about how you redesigned the invoice was really beautiful. And I started to think that when was the last time when I saw an invoice from the telco company of Estonia. So it was a couple of months ago, and it was because it was bigger than it used to be.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm happy if the invoice is getting to my mailbox. It will be paid automatically, and I really don't care since I have my Facebook.
Yeah, so actually, I must say that I'm listening to the discussion today. I'm a little bit impressed and a little bit ashamed being Polish, because we are absolutely not as advanced as Estonia is in terms of e-services and the digitization of the nation. So we are in the kind of pre-internet era for many things that are happening there. So invoices are still quite important. Actually, quite a lot of people still want to have a paper invoice, although they have to pay for it, which surprises me. Some people don't have an email account, so you really have to send it by post. And people do get emails, the invoices attached to an email that they are getting. And of course, now we are also putting the automatic payments and all the things in place, like I guess here is pretty normal. But still, the thing is that especially for businesses, the invoices, they are part of the tax reports. So people do look at them, and they do interact with them. And I think that with having a document that's both legible and beautiful, and I'm being frivolous to the comments of David before. But I think that these things, when they come together, when they are both usable and aesthetically pleasing, they make people be more appreciative of the company. And in the end, for services, the only thing that's important is to get the clients happy so they stay. And these are the intangible things. We as a telecom, we don't have products for them, right? They get a SIM card, and that's about it. And then, you try to find ways to make these people like you as a company to stay with you. And then this is one of the ways to do it.
So, Thank you.
Thank you.